So as you saw in the last episode, we finished what I'm calling the main casing for our muffler, titanium muffler project. What we're going to work on now is the insert or the core that will go into the end here. That's going to be comprised of this perforated tube and this plate that I already made. Made it the same method I did if you look on the previous episode, and this little end exhaust tip. So what you're going to see me do next is we need to cut down these perforated tubes. The two of them are too long. They don't sell a single tube. You buy them in these 8-inch sections. And so I need to make some cuts to this, and then you're going to see where we have one issue here, which is this will be the inlet tube, and when this perforated tube goes in, it's kind of a loose fit. So I'm going to weld on a collar and machine it down so it's a nice snug fit on there. That's what we're going to do next. Let's get started. So here I am cutting down the internal baffle tubes in my bandsaw, and I had to be very gingerly with it because, of course, I'm trying to clamp onto a very thin-walled tube. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I should make some inserts. But I was lazy, and I didn't. And then, of course, in the next step here, I had to make those inserts anyways for this next step. You can see them in the those aluminum rings inside the tube there. There's two of them, one on each end. This allows me to hold it in the vise and machine down the ends and make them nice and flush, something we did previously on another tube. This just makes welding easier and gives you a better, straighter part. All right, with these two tubes now cut down and the ends made flush, those will weld up and be nice and straight. Now I need to fix that issue where the inner tube goes in with the outer tube, has a loose fit like that. So I took one of the drops from this tube, slid it on the bandsaw, and now what I'll do is we will put that on the end like that, weld it, probably just a couple of tack welds, lathe it down so that it fits into here nice and snug. So I tack welded that split collar on the end of one of the baffle tubes and put it in the lathe. Oh, and guess what? I needed those inserts again so I could firmly hold it in the 3-chuck lathe. Lesson here is just make the inserts. You're going to need them. You're going to use them over and over again. So now I am kind of being cautious on leaving this down to the diameter because it is titanium, and still learning about how to machine it. And here we are checking the tube, make sure it fits over it, and it does. Not super tight, but tight enough. Here's a problem with TIG welding titanium perforated tubes. They're perforated. So I needed to tape the bejesus out of this assembly so I could weld the two ends together and backfill it successfully with argon. All right, center perforated tube is now joined by a weld. We have the collar now on the end. That makes for a snugger fit on the inlet tube. Done. What we're going to do now is make the end plate that'll go on the end of this and a flange, which is going to be this material that is going to wrap around the end plate and be welded in place. Tricky. So what is the solution to making that? I believe I have the solution. And if we look at our part here, this is the end plate with the bent and in place flange, as we'll call it. And through some deep thought and overthinking and overcomplicating it, I have created this, a fixture that will be composed of 2 aluminum blocks that will bolt together to make the fixture. They will not only hold the end plate and the flange in place for welding, but they will also have a, let's remove the part, there will be an undercut. If you look here where I'm highlighting, that is an undercut behind the part. So I'm going to have a port here with argon gas coming in, another port on the other side for argon gas to come out. That will back purge the titanium part as I weld it. So it holds it and it allows me to weld it. So all we got to do is go make this. So a brief rundown of how this works. First, we take a blank piece of aluminum like this that we start with, and we'll bring it into the computer here at the shop and do some magic with tooling and tool paths, and then we'll simulate what we're about to cut, as you will see here. Reason for simulation is to make sure everything is going to work as planned. It is far, far less expensive to make mistakes here than over on the mill. So that looks like a good part. So we'll then generate code from that and send it over to the machine, the CNC mill, where it'll be received by this computer. We load up that blank that you just saw me holding, or one similar to it. We load up all the tools that we think we're going to need. Close the door. In our case, we'll leave them open, but I will be wearing my glasses. Hit the green button for go, and we make a part. There's our part. Looks good to me. So here are our two parts of the fixture made. This was the one, or actually this was the one I showed you on the video. This one I made after it. Very similar, just slightly different profile. So what happens is these two parts go together, fasten with this hardware, and then act as a holding jig. Let's go ahead and assemble it real quick. And I do mean quick. All right, done. You'll also notice there is a port here fed by this brass nipple that'll take the argon, and then there's an exit port on the other side. And you'll see there is that undercut that we modeled in to allow the argon to flow around the backside of the assembly. So first thing we do is we take our end plate. I did add two holes here with two alignment pins because I realized when it sits in the bottom of this, it could float. So now it's held in position. And then what we do is we take one of these sheared strips of titanium and we start using this shape as a form. So let's see if I can get started here. All right, we are done forming that lip. I did have to use a handful of these little clamps to hold it as I formed it around, but came out very good. You can see we've got a nice snug seam there, cutting it to length. So we are ready to go. Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, we could have tried forming this in another way and then tacking it onto that end plate, but as opposed to spending the time and effort to make this fixture. However, at the end of the day, the fixture I think is well worthwhile. It makes for this forming of this easy, welding of it easy, and at the end of it, we're going to get a much better part to fit into our muffler. So let's clean it up, sand it up, and take it over to welding. Out of welding, and not too bad, except my welds are not the prettiest. So I learned a lot about inside corner welding of titanium. It's definitely got some challenges, but in this case, the welds are in the inside of the muffler. You'll never see them. All you'll see is this beautiful thing right here. The jig worked great. The fact that it was a two-piece actually made it really nice to remove the part because it was really wedged in there, but the fact I could take the jig apart of the fixture, I was able to pop it out. As you can see, let's see if I can do this with this odd camera angle. It can and does fit into our assembly. So all is good there. What we're going to do next, or you're going to see me do in the next series of videos here, is we're going to weld on the inner baffled tube. We're going to drill out this casing for the rivets to hold this on, and then that will be the end of the insert baffle assembly. You know, there's something I always try to avoid, and that's what I call handwork, like hand filing, hand sanding, hand drilling. I will take the time to put something on one of my machines, indicate it, and let the numbers do the work. So I tried and tried and tried to figure out how to do that, to drill the holes for the rivets on this casing, and I came up with nothing. All of it was just silly. So at the end of the day, we went manually marking it, manually dimpling it like you see me doing here, getting it ready to drill for the rivets, which is what we're doing now. Now, what you're seeing behind that drill there is called a Glecko fastener. They are fantastic. I use these on the airbox on MechanicO, back in the written version of this build report. They allow you to drill a hole and then put a fastener in it temporarily so that as you drill more holes, you don't lose alignment. So when you're all done, you get something that looks like that. Everything, the part is held in place and the holes all line up. So in this shot here, I am welding up the end plate onto the baffle tube. You can notice all the foil work I had to do and tape work. And then here I am welding on the tail cap, and my big ass head is in the way. Not my best video work, but you get the point. So our new internal baffle system, I'll call it, is done. Not too shabby on the tie welds. It has been a learning curve for sure, but we are now done with that. This, of course, does fit into there. So I know what you're saying. When the hell is he going to finish this thing? So I predict 2 more episodes, and we should have this all wrapped up. What we're going to do next is the mounting strap and the inlet tube for this. So see you on the next one.